Hey there, hi there, ho there. I am Serena Hicks, and you are listening to The Serena Hicks Show, where we talk about love and money, all forms of love, self-love, neighborly love, love for your journey of entrepreneurship, love for the money you have, love for the debt you have, if you have any, love for your journey and experiences, learning how to make money, have money, steward money, donate money, receive money, love and money. That's it. We're going to talk about every intersection of and version of love and money. Welcome to the Love and Money Show. If you love it, tell a friend. I love you. I mean it. Let's go.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Serena Hicks Show. I have an amazing guest for you today, as per usual, Denise Vernieri. I literally just asked, like, how do I pronounce your last name? Because Denise is in the tri-state area, New Jersey, and we actually met in a mastermind a while ago called 200K. But in my mind, she's like a New York sister of me, energetically. Like, this is just in my head. That's how it works. And I'm like, it's Vernielli. It's not Vernielli. It's Denise Vernieri,
Vernieri.
who's
Yes.
a business coach, a wife, a mom, a baddie. And we're going to talk about some cool shit, but I'm going to let her introduce herself and then we're going to dive right in.
Yeah. So the New York sister thing, even though I live in New Jersey now, but I grew up in New York. So that's definitely, you're on point with that one. So thank you, Serena, for having me. I'm really excited to be on the show. So I am a mom. I have three kiddos and I have my own business. And before this, I was a side hustling, coach who was working full time as a New York City teacher. And as much as I love teaching, the 9 to 5 structure just wasn't working for some of the values that I had. I wanted to spend a lot more time with my kids, and it felt like I missed a lot of their childhood because I know a lot of people are like, well, you were a teacher, so you were home when they were home. And that's true, but we take a lot of stuff home with us. And I just got to a point where it just felt like my time wasn't my own. And I was really seeking this, life first existence where, of course, we have responsibilities. We got a mortgage to pay, got kids hockey. I do need to bring in money to support my family and my husband and I, it's a partnership. But I just wanted to figure out another way. And I had my own business. And I said, this does pretty well considering I'm not like all in per se. I just was doing this thing on the side. And I said, if I give it a little more attention, let's see what happens. It's kind of my hypothesis. But that was my hypothesis at the time. And I gave to it. And so it gave me in kind. And I was able to leave New York City after 17 years, was a tough transition, but a well-needed one. And it was a beautiful transition. And I genuinely feel like I live pinch me moments like all week. Like all week. I like last week I got to take my daughter to the beach. I picked her up from school early and we went to the beach on a random Tuesday. Pinch me moment, right? So funny. People are gonna laugh when they hear this, but like we have 7 chickens and they're like chicks. So they're still in a brooder in my house and they're gonna go out in the coop in a couple of weeks. And I have wanted these chickens for years, but just the way our life was structured, like I can't take on anything else. And I just feel like I have so much space and I have this beautiful garden of, I was saying before, like tomatoes and eggplants. And it's like a hobby of mine. And I get to nurture that side of me that wants to get my hands in the soil. And I still get to work with incredible clients and make the money that I want to make in my business. That's my pinch me version. I know some people would be like, they want to go to Paris, and live there for a month, which is awesome.
Totally.
But that's just where I'm at right now in my life. That's who I am. And that's what I help my clients do for themselves too. Yeah.
I feel like there's this wave in business that I am welcoming, celebrating, and really keen to name, and for us in particular to talk more about, where it's like you were just speaking to spaciousness. And I'm like, yeah, spaciousness is the new luxury. And the thing that I think is different is I think that even a few years ago, even in my world, luxury may have meant like thread count on sheets and what hotel do you stay at? And even like you said, Paris. And it's like, dude, live in Paris if you want to live in Paris.
Yeah.
Whatever you want is what I want to co-sign on. But it's interesting because it's like, yeah, I prioritize spaciousness now. And if that means for a period of time while I'm reorganizing and sort of, I mean, everything's changing in my life and business. If that means less income or something, that's fine. Like, that's fine. It's a temporary thing, but like, sign me up, no problem. And I'm loving that. I mean, I just think everything paves the way for the next thing. So, like the example I'll borrow, did you go to a life coach school?
I did. I
Okay, for
did.
cert. So we have that in common, right?
Mhm.
So I used to, long before I actually certified at the life coach school, make fun of Brooke Castillo. Because at the time, when I first had her like on my radar, she had that like spiky, type A, super masculine energy, mom energy, short, blonde, spiky hair, always in a suit. And I was just like, ugh, just couldn't get on board. And then she got called in during the summer of 2020.
I remember.
And I remember she hired a Black female CEO who is still, of course, a queen, who is also a Harvard Law graduate. And I remember people chirping, being like, just because you hired a Black CEO doesn't mean you're not racist. And I remember laughing, thinking, how many Black CEOs have you hired to helm your $15 million a year business? Oh, zero. So you're over there judging. And I'm like, no, she's actually walking the talk. And with Erica at the helm, I was like, okay, I want to learn from her. And then I was delighted to see how much she had changed. And I was like, oh, she made so many people take life coaching seriously, and in particular, women see it as a viable option and business opportunity because she wore her suits and had her spiky hair. So even though I make fun of it, I'm now like, cool, that was right at the time for those people. And she gets to evolve. And I am loving, like we met in a mastermind a few years ago, seeing how many of us, including the woman who led that mastermind, are actively right now really evolving into pinch me moments, as you described.
Yeah. Yeah. I think what you're saying, or at least what you were saying before, really struck a chord, and like how I think about my business and I think about my life, and like what's really important is, listen, like revenue is great,
Yeah,
but if you are not able to enjoy the fruits of that labor, then I have to question what's the point. And maybe it's because I did leave a 9 to 5 in pursuit of that freedom. That's always been like the cornerstone of how I operate in my business. Not to say that I haven't gotten into hustle mode or into burnout, or
of
like
course.
had to have a come to moment with the husband where he's like, you are working too much. Like, you left teaching so that you could be more present. What's going on? And thanks to Rich, because he's able to call me out on those things. I had to do some reevaluation. And I have said this multiple times. Like, if I have to leave money on the table, if that's, and who even knows if that's true, but I'm
Oh,
willing to leave money on the table so that I can really enjoy my life and
mhm.
enjoy my children and enjoy my husband and the time that we do have. It's so important to me, and I think that more and more that really is important. Like, the money is great, of course, and you're in business, you need to make money, but you also need to make sure that like you're able to enjoy it. Or what's the point? Like, really truly, what is the point?
I love how you explained it. And I also come from a corporate background. And it's like interesting to me how often someone leaves one cage for another.
Yes.
And I'm like, no, no, no. We want no cage, no cage, freedom here. But excuse me, also interesting, two things that you said that I want to make sure listeners hear, and I want to underline them, highlight them, and bold them and draw stars around them if we were writing notes, is, we're in business to make money. And something that's fascinating to me, and I see it so often in so many humans, is that they're ping ponging between the two extremes of either trying to force it or just saying, fuck it, it didn't work, forget it, F it, I don't care. And like, it doesn't matter if my business never makes money. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, of course it does. And not because of the money, but like, what are you doing if not taking time? Never mind, I don't have a husband and kids family. Like, if you're just like accidentally attempting to earn worthiness and belonging by overgiving and pretending that is more righteous, like, well, I just don't need the money. Well, that's great, truly. And a business is meant to make money that allows it to serve you and others again and again. And at the same time, not ping ponging to the other extreme where it's all about the money, like finding that sweetness in the middle where it's like, yeah, I'm here to make money. And that's not the only thing that's happening. And
Right.
I'm here to make money. And that's not the only thing that's happening. And finding that flow.
Yeah. I don't even like to call it balance. It's just really finding like the rhythm of your life that works for you, where you are making the money that you want,
Mhm.
that you need, of course, for your livelihood and the money that you want. And if that's more than quote unquote what you need, that's beautiful too. And flowing beautifully into, and now you have the time to do the things that like nurture your spirit, right? Whether that's taking care of your body, if you like to work out, you have the time to do that. If that's, surprise little trips with your children, or if it's just taking a daily lunch break with your husband, because he also works from home, right? Like it doesn't always have to be these grandiose things. It's to
Yes.
me, I have found it's way more those smaller moments. Like I was
Mhm.
just talking to you before we got on how my little one has poison ivy right now. And I was out in my garden the other day and he came out and he was like, "Hey mom, you want some help?" And I'm like, pinch me moment. Of course, yes. I want you to spend time with me in the garden. We could, I could show you the tomato. He's showing me the tomatoes. Like, did you see this one? Did you see that one? Mom, look at the eggplant. It's growing. Like that to me, it's like the little moments
Mhm.
where, because I have the time and the spaciousness and the relaxed approach
Mhm.
to my life and my business, that I get to do those things where I think sometimes, maybe when I got caught up in things prior, I wouldn't even be out in the garden. I wouldn't even have a garden because in my mind, I wouldn't have time to do that. It's going to take too much of my time. So to me, it's like those little things and having that beautiful, like symbiotic relationship between making the money that you want to in your business, but also making the time for your life.
We talk about how people can do that because I just heard like 10,000 listeners, and it's funny because I don't think 10,000 people listen as we record this in 2024 of June, but I just heard. So apparently I have big plans for this. Like 10,000 people screaming, "Okay, great, you two. How?" And before I answer, I want you to speak to, I suspect we're going to say the same thing, like how does one find their rhythm in this?
Okay, well, of course, I'm going to go with the mindset first, right? And then of
Yeah.
course I'll share a strategy too on how I handle that. But one, I think the most important mindset to have is like I have enough. It sounds like such a simplistic thought to have, but so
Oh.
many people are operating from the I don't have enough time, I don't have enough money, I don't have enough clients, followers, like I mean the endless barrage of I don't have enough. And I have really learned like how toxic that thought can be. Um, and if truly fact, and okay, of course we want to deal in facts, right? Like if you're like, I can't pay my mortgage. And so it's like a literal, I don't have enough, but most of that you need to do, like, that's not a mindset. That's like a circumstance. Go take action, go get a job, do what you got to do. I'm talking about people where that's like not the case, but they're still in this belief that they don't have enough.
Mhm.
That's really what I'm talking about.
Mhm.
When you believe that you do, or you're open to the belief that you do, like I do have the time to like garden. I,
Mhm.
I do have time to like sit down and have dinner as a family, like a few times a week. Like I do have that time.
Mhm.
When you believe that, like you're not going to spend that time thinking about your business. You're going to
Mhm.
spend that time present, right? Um, and so it's a mindset first. Then from that mindset, what strategy I have for myself and what I teach my clients is I teach them white space calendaring.
Mhm.
And we talked about broke, we talked about LCS. I love a majority of what she teaches. But Monday Hour One, which was like the time management course, it's a great time management course. Said no one ever. No, just kidding.
No, I'm
For
like,
me,
hard fail, hard fail. Tried so many times, did so
listen,
much
I know
self
some people
coaching.
really love that, but
Good
like
for
they
them.
like that calendaring blocked out, like
Good for
get it
them.
done unless
What
there's
is
somebody
happening?
bleeding. Right. But I'm like a mom, like that doesn't work for me. And when I was working full time, like it also Monday Hour One did not work for me because sometimes your boss is going to ask you to stay late. And that is a priority. That job is a priority, the same way your business is. Sometimes your kids are just going to need you. And there may not be blood or fevers or vomits, right? There just might be an emotional need. So I'm going to be present for the things that I want to be present for. And so what I do is I do white space calendaring where I have, I have my client sessions. I have my back end time that I'm going to be, I carve out time every week that I want to work, create and whatever. But I leave white space in my calendar, lots of white space. And I know that if my child needs me and it's the time I'm supposed to either be with a client or I need to, write launch emails or whatever, I can substitute that out for the white space later in the week. Mm-hmm. And I build in the like, oh shit, I can curse, right? Yeah, of course I can. Hello. Who am I talking to?
My show.
Right. Like, oh shit, I didn't have the time to get done the thing I needed to get done because life happened. Right. And like where time blocking doesn't take into consideration life happening. It's like, you put this on your calendar, so now you need to get it done, come hell or high water. And I think that backfires so much for people because they're like, but life happened. And I don't mean you're giving yourself excuses to not do the things you need to get done. Like truly life happened. So I build white space in, and that's that. Like, here's another radical thing. I suffer from migraines. Mm-hmm. I tell all my clients, I suffer from migraines and I don't know when they're going to hit. And sometimes they are so bad that I can't even drive a car. So they know when they sign up with me that there might be in the course of our 6 months together that I may have to cancel because of a migraine. And it's not because I'm not professional. It's because my coaching isn't going to be quality if I can barely form a sentence.
I respect that so much. And I think it's such an interesting, I want to like play with that topic because sometimes, and certainly in my containers, there have been clients who are like, I just reschedule because life happens, blah, blah, blah. And I don't feel I was clear enough with them. Like, that's some bullshit. This is my opinion. But like when I have an appointment, especially with like a coach, I want them to honor that appointment. But also, if that coach cannot perform because of a migraine, because they have a cold, because they've received the kind of news that not for me to judge and I don't need to know it, right. But they are like, oh yeah, I can't actually hold the space. Well, that's different. I respect that. To me, that's them honoring my time, my investment in our coaching relationship or our professional relationship for non-coaches. But I also just have to say, because I don't know that I did a good job of it years ago. So often people are like, I just tell my clients we always reschedule. And then they're like, why is my coaching practice not full? And I'm like, could you imagine booking flights and they just might, for any reason, right, cancel? And like when flights are canceled, it's because, the plane cannot fly or the captain has not shown up. And that I'm on board for. Safety first, but not just because shoulder shrug. So I love your clarity. And I want to make sure everyone listening is catching that anytime you cancel, it's because you're honoring. You are a paid coach, not just showing up and like killing the hours so you can be like, cool, I delivered. You're like, no. When I can't deliver, I can't deliver. And they know that when they sign up. Yeah. And I give myself full permission, period.
Yep. 100%. And that is to me, that's really a life first approach.
Yes.
Right? Like we don't need to be killing ourselves in our business, missing out on important events for our family. Like that is, I think, kind of an unwritten rule of corporate. Like I know it was certainly an unwritten rule of teaching and education was like, oh, well, if you don't have time to get all those papers graded, you need to be bringing them home. Oh, you took off you can't take off more than 2 days in a row. Like, what if I just have the flu like for 5 days, right? And it's just, you don't need to operate like that in your business. Doesn't give you the freedom to just like have a free for all in your business either. That's probably not going to work either, but it doesn't need to be that rigid structure. And I like to build in things into my day, into my week, into my contracts that really safeguard around, having that flexibility that I need as a mom. And even if you're not a mom, right? You might have just, you might be taking care of a parent. You might have other responsibilities that also might encroach on your back end time. And so you want that white space later on, right? It's just having that life first approach where you're still going to get done the things that you need to get done, but it doesn't have to be in a forced way.
100% cosign. I think it's actually integrity that you're speaking to. And the way I'm thinking of that is, I don't have kids, thankfully. My dad is doing exponentially better. So it seems like he's pretty independent. We're sort of back to normal rhythms there.
I'm glad to hear.
Thank you. I'm very glad to say. But especially all of my clients in the boom boom room, but certainly my private clients, like they've hired a version of me that is like a full cup that can coach their face off. So if that's not available for any number of reasons, it just feels like, again, being in integrity to be like, hey, here's why I have to reschedule, as opposed to, just trying to like, whatever, I showed up and fulfilled the hour, in which case, but it wasn't me. And at the same time, I want to highlight again, it is a business. They have entrusted me with their money, with their time, with our sacred contract of I'm going to coach them and support them in growing their business. So I think that's, as you said, like it can't just be completely haphazard. It's like I want to honor their investment, time, money, attention, trust. And so for that reason, it's not just like, I'm just feeling cranky today. It's like, okay, that's a me issue.
Yeah. And I think from two perspectives. One, if my whole, like we were talking about Brooke, like, you can't just talk to talk, you got to walk it as well. If my whole thing is like, I want to help you create a profitable business, a successful business that prioritizes your life, I need to be like walking that. I can't just say that and give it lip service. I need to be an embodiment of that. And I think that's what I do very well
Yes.
because it's truly my belief.
It's integrity.
Yeah,
And
100%.
not a moral judgment. I'm going to say that more and more for everyone. Integrity, not the moral judgment. I'm rolling my eyes if you're not watching the video, not the like ethics, because, and here I go. Ethics is an opinion. Some people think they're more ethical because they believe a woman has a right to choose what happens in her body, and other people think they're more ethical because they create laws that limit what a woman can do with her body. Each of them insists they're being more ethical. Ethics are a judgment. Integrity, like the integrity on a ship's hull or the integrity of an airplane, determine if it's all united or not. And I love that you're like, this is what I teach my clients to do. This is why people pay me. Of course, I give myself permission. You would be out of integrity if you worked 8 days a week and pushed through my grades.
Yeah, that would be completely out of integrity. And I think also we need, like my whole thing when I left corporate, I was very like rah, rah, like anti 9 to 5. And I see the value of it for a lot of people. I understand that is, some people like, it was really, it's so funny. So how your brain really can play tricks on you. There was a point where I was like, wait, you actually like your 9 to 5? Because I would meet people and they would say they liked it. And I was like, you're an anomaly. Like in my world, it was like almost nobody liked it. Right. So I was very like, the only way you can create freedom is in your own business. And I still do believe like that true for my people, but you can create freedom in your 9 to 5, I'm sure, if you want to figure it out. For me and mine, that's just not what was, it just wasn't feasible for us. Like we want to make our own time and schedule. And we want to be able to teach the things we want to teach without all the red tape and all that kind of stuff. And it's just to me, it's like, I want to be able to not just walk my talk, but I want to be able to give permission to people to reorient their business around their life.
Yes.
Because I think too many of us are working in careers or working in a way that is like, we'll enjoy it when we're 60. We'll enjoy it later. And I can't tell you, Serena, how many people I know who had that, future plan to get there and get sick and or worse. And what a travesty to spend so much of your life working for that like moment to not be able to now bring it to fruition because you can't enjoy it.
Here is a concept to underline what you just said. I learned it from Byron Katie. I want to give her credit, but here's the concept that is guiding, like it is my true north. Heaven is here and now, or hell is here and now. So people just, the way you were describing, it's like, no, I'll be in heaven when I retire, like, or I'll be in heaven when I'm physically dead. And I'm not going to debate with anyone what happens when you physically die, keep our opinions. But if what you were thinking and believing today goes with you into, quote, the afterlife, would heaven still be heaven? So for people who've been thinking and believing, I don't have enough time, I don't have enough money, I need more love, this isn't working. If that's what someone's thinking all day here on supposed earth, if they die and go to heaven and they're thinking, I don't have enough time, I don't have enough money, this isn't working, would it still be heaven or would it be hell? And so I argue that just as you said, instead of thinking like I suffer now and then it'll pay off, it's like we cannot grow an apple tree from orange seeds. Suffering does not magically suddenly open into joy. So if the day to day isn't yummy, juicy, loving, peaceful, spacious, connected, we
Mhm.
can't create it from another energy. Like hurry and worry cannot create profitable, peaceful business. And it's
Yeah.
like you're modeling so well the like here and now is
Right.
what we create more of.
Yeah. And it gives permission for people to be like, oh, wait, maybe there is another way to live and work.
There
And it
is.
sounds maybe ambitious to be like the whole corporate structure really needs to be reevaluated because I'm still friends with people that work in corporate.
Mhm.
And the stories that I hear about just the gross abuse of power, the overstepping of boundaries, the unwritten expectations that people now work 60. It's like they get to work from home 3 days a week now, but it's like they're working 15 hours a day on those days because they're home, right? So how is that a gift, right? And really, I was like, I had this moment when I was teaching. It's like something is just not right with this. Like it's
Yeah.
something like somewhere along the line,
Yeah.
like how are we all on board? How are we all on board to the few? Like it just does it blows my mind. So I think that whenever I model to my clients that, this is what, I'm going to call out today because I have a migraine or, hey, I can't meet you next week because I got this going on with my kiddo, but I'll make up, we can meet on this time. Like whenever I do that, it's like disrupting that belief that like that
Yeah.
structure that we're just like all blindly operating under.
It's
And sorry, go ahead.
dismantling. It's just,
Yes.
it's not just disrupting, it's dismantling. It's not
Yeah.
like, I'm so sorry, but it's,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And even like I remember one day, like I was like, why do we have a 40-hour work week? Like, why isn't it 25 hours? Like who just, it's like some arbitrary number. Like, why is full time 40 hours? Why can't it just be 25? Like,
but
what a world we would live in if everybody
do
had
you
more
know,
time home,
do you know
right?
why it's 40?
Well, Henry Ford, but
Right. As in like
I do
that
know the
was,
reason, but
it's just outdated is what I
right.
offer. It's
Yeah.
just old. Like that was effective for the systems of teaching people to be employees and effective for like factory models. And actually, it's funny because as we're recording this, so it's the end of June of 24, you guys, 2024, Netflix just released their updated, I forget what they call it, but it's their HR, like, this is our corporate culture. And it's so hot. It is
Is
so
it?
sexy. It's so good. It's so concise. And I was like, oh, right. And part of what's brilliant, of course, about concise is they're like, these are the points. Like, we want a fourth grader to understand this is the vibe. And part of it, which is part of why I think it's so exciting, especially for entrepreneurs, is I think that we are leading in that. And obviously, Netflix being a huge company, well, a new company, 13,000 employees, but it's very entrepreneurial. And
Mm.
so the number one, let me see if I can do it from memory, actually. The first thing that I love that I want to offer for everyone, especially for CEOs, they're like, listen, this isn't a family. This is like a dream team. Like our culture, like we think sports, dream team, not we're a family. As
Mm.
in, we want to take care of you, treat you like the star you are, and we expect you to perform. This is not a family. We don't, and they actually, I can't remember the exact sentence, but it was so good. They're like, we don't tolerate things that families tolerate and look away from. Like, this is not a family. And I know that you and I are
Cool.
similar ages. So we came up, young people laugh. We came up in a world where, like, when I would get hired for jobs, and Denise, I'm assuming it's same in teaching, it was
Mhm.
like, we're a family here.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
family. I have a family. This ain't it. And at the same
Right.
time, it was meant to be like, we just love, but to your point, yeah, we just love asking you to work 6 days a week and or nights and weekends. We
Right.
expect you like a family to
Yeah.
be
Don't
compliant.
we matter to you? So don't you want to stay late for us?
We're
Yeah.
family. We're going to go for drinks at 8, 9 p.m. What? Okay,
Yeah.
so I love the dream team. Like in my head, I'm seeing basketball. Like we're going to treat you like a star and you're going to perform.
Love
That's
it.
not a match. No problem. You're going to get traded. Like no problem. So the dream team culture. And then they mentioned, and I was like, oh, that's hot. They were like, okay, no brilliant assholes. So like you can be super smart, but if you just super don't like vibe with everyone, like we're not tolerating it. This is not, oh, but He's so
Hmm.
smart. I said he on purpose, you guys. Okay. Anyways, that's not a thing. And they were talking about responsibility, which I
Hmm.
love. And they're like, if we have to manage you, it's probably not a fit. Like we want to let you be responsible for things. And obviously managers are involved, but they're very clear, like you're an innovator, you own your shit. If we have to manage all of you all day, like it's not a vibe. And then I thought it was fascinating at the end, they talked about we're keeping our policy. There's no limitations or rules on their vacation policy and their expenses.
Love it.
And they were
I
like, yeah,
love it.
some people have been assholes, some people have been fired for, attempting to take advantage.
Yeah.
But I thought this is the new, like it's already happening. This is the new era. And I'm thinking of people who work there, not a you, not a me, but like
Right.
it's such an entrepreneurial environment.
It's probably refreshing to some people who's like, it's probably going to be a little jarring too to work in a capacity where, like, wait, I can just take the day. And I have friends that work for certain companies like that. And they're like, can take as many mental health days as they want.
Mhm.
And you know what they all say? But we don't really want to because we just like don't need the mental health day. Like it's such a like beautiful model when you give your employees like the trust, right? Like you're like treating them like the adults that they are and you're trusting that they're going to get their shit done. And because they work in such a really truly supportive environment where it's like expectations are clear, stop, take your lunch, stop
Mhm.
working, you can take your days that you need. Like you actually, it's like you don't want to. But when the more micromanaged you are, it's
Yeah,
like you start like having phantom symptoms, like I just need a day, like when's the
totally.
next vacation day, you start counting the days. So
I
it's
also I think it really encourages and makes fairly clear, like sifts through those who own their shit versus those who don't. Because I occasionally have people who come into the boom boom room, and I'm very happy they did because they are
Mhm.
mind blown, not in the most fun way, because they were just sort of hearing and they're just sort of there's a sense of entitlement.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, I want you to be getting paid more for work you love. I want you to get paid more and work less, but it doesn't work when it's just wrapped in a sense of entitlement. Like I am owed this because I showed up. And so I also love those policies, especially in corporate settings, because there are people who just like take their vacation and tried to file expenses for, wild things. And then they were shocked when they were released. And yet it's like, if we're not micromanaging this and we're trusting our employees know what they're doing and they're delivering dream team style, they're performing, it's
Yeah.
going well, then it's like, yeah, let's not have an entire department dedicated to managing pennies and nickels and finger wagging. Like, let's not employ those 15 people. And instead, let's just give our people what they need to thrive. And if
Yeah.
they're not performing dream team style, let's thank them for their time. And
Yeah. I hope somebody does like a study on this for Netflix because I'm really curious, like true employee satisfaction, right? And I bet that I mean, that company's making so much money, but I bet they make even more because they're going to have happy people working for them.
so I'm remembering, and it's actually interesting to me because I'm like, oh, I didn't see it till this exact moment. My first like big kid job, if you will, was MTV News in 2000. I started on election coverage in New York City. And back then, we could FedEx children. This is going to make you laugh. FedEx labels were like paper labels you held. You didn't do it online yet. You just like took your pen and like pressed down for carbon copies and like
Oh
that's how
my
you
gosh.
FedEx things. So we
Yes.
could there was that and then I don't even remember other than like meals were provided and taxis home after 8 p.m. And granted, the day didn't start till 10 a.m. So that was just normal. Like I was never out of the office before 8. So I was like, cool, I'd get dinner, da 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 da. And then a few years later, accounting, somebody somewhere in corporate was like, what is this shit show? And so we could still FedEx things, but you had to put every show, every project I worked on, we had a budget code. The idea being, of course, they could then be like, excuse me, what is happening here?
Right.
And I think it's interesting, especially as a coach who likes to talk about money and abundance. I remember there was one boss, I won't say her name. It's not my beloved Betsy, but this boss, people told me, and then I worked with her. She was the worst. I am really biting my tongue, but she used to um, FedEx things to and from Brazil with her family on company money. And then I had to do her expense reports at some point, and she used to take a taxi to work every single day for no reason other than she just felt entitled. And I remember like It's such vitriol towards her because she was so entitled. And then she had the audacity to come into my office one day and was like, I saw that you expensed your lunch while I was in an edit bay, which was totally fair play. And if you were in an edit all day, you expensed
Mhm.
your lunch. And she had like all these questions. And I remember thinking, you literally take a taxi to work every day, which is not something that like we're allowed to do. And FedEx, my understanding is thongs to and from Brazil with your
Mhm.
sister on company money, but you want to come complain to me about lunch. And I am bitching about this because clearly I still have memories. But I also remember she wasn't getting where she thought she should be professionally. And I'm like,
Mm.
yes, because energetically, she was so entitled. Like she thought
Yeah.
she was supposed to be treated one way, and everyone who worked under her or with her was supposed to be treated another. And I'm like, that is energetically unattractive. So I
Yes.
had to work for her. And yet I'm like, I didn't have to, but like that was a project I was assigned to and only once.
Yeah.
But I'm like, oh yeah, I wonder how that worked out for her. I suspect not well because she was like frustrated that she wasn't being promoted. And yet I'm like, it's not actually her work. Her work was entirely decent. It's this energy.
Right. That entitlement. And I think like people, your clients, right? Like if we're talking about growing your coaching business, like your audience can sniff that out. They sniff it out, they feel it well before like they could even articulate it to you.
Totally.
And when I say a life first business, I'm always super clear with my clients and in my marketing, like you will work hard. There will be seasons that there will be 60-hour weeks. There might be a season, there might be a couple of weeks there where you are like pedal to the metal and it's full, right? And you're like, "Oh my god, this is hard." But then that's not the norm though, right? So I don't want to ever misrepresent like the fact that like yes, I took my daughter to the beach. Here's what happened. I had one client call on Wednesday and my client couldn't meet. So I moved it to a day where I usually stack all my clients and I was like, "Oh, now there's this free white space because I moved it to other white space. I'm going to go to the beach with my daughter," right? Like I capitalized on that moment. But I'm working my butt off the other days that I wasn't at the beach, right? So, like, I want to be very clear. I don't feel like I'm entitled to this pinch me moment, life first existence. I'm still working hard when I'm working. And it's not hard where I'm hustling and I'm in burnout, but it's still hard work. And there are seasons where I am hustling a little bit more. And I think hustle got a really bad rap. Like, when I say hustle, I mean like there's some grit and tenacity to what I'm
Yeah.
doing. But it's just not the norm,
Mhm.
right? It's just not the norm.
I think this is so valuable for everyone listening because this is about nuance. This is
Yeah.
about nuance. This is the difference between successful business owners and those who get really frustrated and or burn out. There's nuance. It's not, and I used to make, and I'm going to do it again and again. It's like anti-racism work, this work
Mhm.
of growing a business. We're all good humans here. We all want a hundred point document that we could check every list and get it right. And that's not available. We have to get in the game, do the best we can, be willing to notice, ooh, that part I didn't do right. And forgive ourselves and make amends and apologies where, but like everyone wants the like, give me the exact blueprint parameters. And I'm like, no, that doesn't exist. That's the old way. We are now out of the cage. We are out of the box. The good news is we are free. The bad news is we're going to fuck up sometimes.
Yeah.
And I actually think you just answered all over again the question of like, how do we get to having pinch me moments? And my answer is you learn by doing, you do the damn thing. And I think something that kills me, how often people ask me, like, how did you build a multi-million dollar business, mostly organic and da 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 da? What books did you read? Oh, honeys, lots of books.
Oh yeah.
That didn't get me here. I've been literate for 40 something years. It was the coaches and the communities that I paid to join to consciously be surrounded by other people who share my values, including I want a business, I want to figure out the business. And part of how I've figured out what lights me up right now is by occasionally doing it wrong,
Oh
literally
yeah.
doing things
Yeah.
that now I'm like, oh, I don't do that anymore. Oh, I don't believe that
Yeah.
anymore.
How I have a pinch me schedule, a life first business is because I didn't. Because I took my employee mindset and slapped it on my business and got into like, working way too much. And even when I was having boundaries on paper, I was still like worried about the business or thinking about that. And now I just don't do that. But I made that error, if you will. Right. And I never believed that I should have like spaciousness in my life.
Mhm.
Right. I knew that it was something we're all deserving of, but I didn't feel like it should just come to me. Like it should just manifest it because I want it. Right.
Mhm.
Like I knew that, oh, there's like things I need to do to figure out how to create that. And I'm probably going to mess up along the way. And I think with this entitlement piece, Serena, like I see it a lot and I don't know what's created it. I mean, we could probably go down rabbit holes on this, but I think for a few years there was that like overwhelming marketing around like, oh, you can like work less and make $1 million overnight. And, it was just a lot of hyperbole, a lot of, large claims. And I think it set people up. Well, I should say large claims, and some of them are obviously there's scammers, but then they were real, but they were lacking context. Like, yes, you made 100K, in 2 months. But how many months before that were you working? Were you working for 2 years to hit that marker? Did you give context? You know what I'm saying?
I do. I think I very lovingly somewhat disagree with you because, like,
Okay.
as an example, my very first mastermind was 10K per person, 6 months, 190K, like 19 people
Mhm.
signed up. Like, that was my first mastermind. To your point, was not my first group offering. My first group offering was 2 Junes prior, and it was 1,000 a person, and one person signed up. So, to your point, 2 years prior was my first group offering, and I had been full tilt, pedal to the metal, leaning forward for those 2 years.
Mhm.
But to my point, which is also your point secretly, I
Okay.
think the number one strategy is always mindset. And my mindset was tight. Like it was, and I can say that with no shame. I lost and really questioned, is mindset everything, for most of 2023 and all these different things, which is one of the reasons I'm firmly in the seat of mindset. Again, I'm like, listen, the mindset is the soil from which everything grows or doesn't grow. And so I do think, because I was one of those people who used to say, and then I was like, wait, am I wrong? You can make more working less, but that only works as you model in this moment, being in integrity, not as a moral judgment, but you're like life first, business.
Yeah.
And this is the part of mindset that also jacks people up on entitlement. It takes as long as it takes. Impatience makes it take longer. So to be very clear, I wasn't efforting for a 200K launch. I was efforting to do the best I could. I was in service truly. It wasn't
Right.
I'm going to do this by this. It was absolutely coming from love, and the mindset was in the right spot. And I think that as we're in agreement, there's so much nuance.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I totally agree that you can make more working less. I believe that. I used to work like 80 hours a week as a teacher, like, and I was only really paid to work 37 and a half,
Yeah.
but
And we pay our teachers not enough.
I was working like 60, 70 hours a week. Right. So I definitely make more now working less. Like that's true. I just think where the entitlement comes from is when we're not giving the context around that result. And
Yeah.
it's just like we're selling just the result. And then
Yeah.
people get this belief,
Yeah.
well, I should make more working a lot less.
Or my favorite, I should just be able to work like 2 hours a day and make
Yeah.
100,000. And if not, what you
Yeah.
have taught me, Serena, is not working. And I'm like, no, no, no.
Yeah.
We always give more than we get.
Mhm.
And I think that the entitlement piece, sometimes people are like, I posted once a week. Where's my $10
I was
million?
about to say, oh, well, like I'm posting. So like, why am I not getting the consults? And it's like, well, yes, great for taking action. That's important,
Yes.
100%. But there's so much more to it than just like, I'm posting, I should get these results. Right. And I think, like, because I was really curious, like, why do so many people have this belief?
Yeah.
And I do think like part of it was like some of the marketing that we saw with claims
Yeah.
wasn't giving that context, right? Wasn't
Okay.
was like just selling that end result
Yeah.
and not like giving the nuance, right?
I think there's
Uh,
some nuance, but I also think there is a learned helplessness in particular for
mm,
those of us who have not been socialized to see ourselves as leaders and having value in the workforce. Like we've been
mm.
socialized, especially if it's the employee mindset, like you show up and
You do the
XYZ
work.
is going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's so much nuance to
That is a good point, right? Or
failing.
it's like, I went to school, I put in the 4 years, I took the exact classes they told me to take. And so I got the degree. And it's like, yes, and business is different. Entrepreneurship is different. It's not that.
That's it. It's like so much of us. Yeah. I think that was an advantage that I only now can see in hindsight. When I went to college, I went to a tiny high school, 178 people in my graduating class. And then I went to the University of Texas, and I was in classes where the smallest class was 500 people and plenty of classes were 2,000 people. And it was such a gift for me. And I understand a lot of people have a different experience, but it was such a gift because I like recognized, even as an 18-year-old, I am responsible for how this works. And so when I had questions, I'd go to like the TAs or the office hours. Like I was just schmoozing, socializing, if we're being honest. But also it was like, I realized in a sea of 2,000 people, if I'm borderline pass fail, I want them to know my name, my face, and that I give a shit. And I want them to think that and not just me be another name. And if it's a pass fail, I'm failed. Yeah.
That's a good point, right? Like just not like seeing that if you don't make it, you take responsibility for
Yeah.
it. It's like you're kind of like hoping that it's just going to happen naturally, right? And whether that's being conditioned that way or just a learned behavior. And maybe it is because I even like as a teacher, I can speak to how we've changed the way that we approach our students, right? When I left, like a lot of it felt so out of a lot of what we were being asked to do felt out of integrity, where it was basically like, kind of shuffling kids along. And, I'm like, that's just setting them up for failure the rest of their lives, because that is not how, they want to go get hired by these bigger companies. Them just showing up to their job every day isn't necessarily going to keep the job, right? Like they're going to have to perform. They're going to have to meet expectations, field hard conversations with people when they're not performing, right? So I wonder if that's where it's coming from, right? Like this, oh, well, if I just show up to my class, my teacher has to pass me, it's like,
I mean,
that's not how I was when I was, when we were in school. It was like, oh no, you can't just like sit here and breathe air with the rest of us. Like you actually need to be a functioning part of the class in order to get, the grade, in order to pass. And so, yeah.
Which is so funny because I'm like, in high school, I just had to breathe air. It was fine. It was because it was a small school and it was totally like, whatever.
I had 4,000 in my school. So my graduating class was like over 1,000 kids. Yeah.
I wanted to go to school where you went to high school. I would watch movies like Pretty in Pink and be like, I just wish there was someone I didn't know their entire life story when I see them in the hallways. Like,
right. Oh yeah. People ask me all the time, oh, did you know so-and-so? I'm like, man, there were like over 1,000 kids in my class. It's very feasible. I went to high school with people that I just never took a class with, did not know they existed. So no, I don't know that person.
All up in everybody's business. East Texas AF, you guys. If you're like, do you know so-and-so? I'm like, and I can tell you this story and I can tell you that story and I'll tell you why her parents got divorced. It's bizarre. Oh my gosh. Okay. If you're listening to this, I want you to know that you can also go over to Denise's podcast, Uncensored. We actually recorded one a while ago and like it is live at this time. So Denise, will you tell them how to get to the podcast? Show notes will have all of your information.
Great. So Uncensored Marketing, Messaging, and Sales is on all your favorite platforms, of course, Apple, Spotify. So you can definitely head on over there. And I'm also on Instagram. My handle's at Denise Vernieri. And those are my two favorite places to hang out. I love my podcast and I love being on Instagram. You can also find me on Facebook, but I don't hang out there as much. So thank you so much for having me, Serena.
Thank you for sharing, including chickens and kids, moments. And also, like, yes, sometimes there's a lot of work. Like, thank you for obviously it's on brand, but thank you for like chopping it up with me. I appreciate you.
100%, Serena. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, everybody. See you later. Bye. Hey, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you loved it, please share it with a friend, subscribe, leave a great review. If you didn't, okie dokes. I still love you. I still mean it. If you'd like to work together, you can find me at serenahicks.com. Also, any and all of my social profiles, click the link in profile and you'll find information about my 6-month group program. It is my signature 6-month program. It's $3,000 for 6 months of access. It's called the Boom Boom Room, specifically because we will take your current concepts about you and money and we will make them go boom. Also bloom, but it's fun to say boom and it's fun to say boom boom room. Love you, mean it. See you on the internet. Bye.